Good evening, everybody. Tonight we have the great pleasure of having Mr. Jeff Tompkins with us with Altos Trading. So Jeff, welcome to the Candlestick Forum, and we're anxious to see what you have for us tonight.
Thanks so much, Becky. Thanks for having me on. And it looks like we have a full room tonight, so welcome everybody. Thanks for taking time out of your evening to join us for this extra special presentation. You're going to get a lot out of it, so it should take us about 45 minutes to an hour or so to cover everything. And we're going to reserve Q&A time towards the end because I do have a lot to get through, so I don't want to detract from any of that. So we'll hold off on Q&A till the end, but feel free to type in any questions that come to mind as I'm presenting. I don't want you to lose your thoughts. So with that, I'll go ahead and get in. Looks like we got some really great attendance tonight. Hey, JR from Texas. D-Max, hello. Earl. Jim from Western Washington. Welcome, everybody. Glad to have you on. We're going to be discussing my proprietary Slingshot setup tonight. And this is a setup that I use myself. I do trade for a living. And I will be giving you a little background on myself here as we get into the presentation. I also run a hedge fund. And so a lot of what I share with you tonight are some of the proprietary tactics and techniques, methodologies that I use in my hedge fund as well. So I'm really excited to share everything with you guys. And ultimately, what we're going to get out of the session tonight are some tools for you to help you buy low and sell high in any market in any time frame. So regardless of what strategy you currently trade, what markets you trade, whether you trade options, equities, ETFs, futures, Forex, this can really be applied to any market. So I'm happy that you guys are going to get a lot out of our session tonight. So before we get into the topic, we'll go ahead and cover our disclaimer real quick. Trading securities and options does involve risk, as we all know. And prior to buying or selling an option, you must receive a copy of characteristics and risks of standardized options. And of course, investors need a broker to trade securities and options and must meet suitability requirements. We will be going over some performance figures, both real performance and hypothetical performance. And as we all know, those past results are not necessarily indicative of future performance. But what we share are based on actual trades, including real money results. But of course, due to the time-critical nature of trading, brokerage fees, and the activity of other subscribers, we can't guarantee that anybody will mirror our performance. But again, the performance numbers shown are based on trades users could enter based on the trade signals. So with that, let's get into it. So many of you probably recognize some or all of these faces, and these guys have a lot of things in common. They have one particular thing in common that you may not guess, and if you do recognize any or all of them, Jim says they're all evil. They're all very successful traders and investors. Okay, they're big name investors. They have a lot of money in the markets. SP says they're wealthy. Yeah, they're all very wealthy. But there's one thing you might not guess they have in common, and that's that they've all bought high and sold low. In other words, they've all done the opposite of what you would want to do to be successful. And of course, they're all very successful, but the point is they've all made mistakes. And why have they made these mistakes? It's simply because they're human, right? We all make mistakes as traders and investors. None of us are perfect. And ultimately, it's about overcoming those mistakes that we can make as traders and investors to ultimately become successful. And that's part of what we're going to be covering together tonight is the whole psychology of trading and talking about why the market is so difficult to trade. So many educators out there just want to give you the answer and tell you how easy things are, but the reality is they're not easy. And I like to really start out by talking about the difficulties in trading so that we can address those head on and overcome them to become successful. And so what you see here on your screen is a psychology curve as it relates to the sort of roller coaster of emotions that are involved in trading and investing. So if you look at the left side of this curve, you'll notice that typically when we enter into a trade or an investment, we're very optimistic, enthusiastic, even exuberant, and sometimes euphoric as things may work out in our favor, or we have some sort of really optimistic view of why we're making this trading or investing decision. Maybe it's based on gut instinct. Maybe it's a hot tip from a friend or a family member. There's many different ways that we come to make our trading decisions, but ultimately, we make the decision because we believe that trade or investment is going to work out in our favor. We would never obviously enter into something that we don't expect to work out. So often what happens when you start out very, pleased with your investment, you're optimistic, that can very quickly turn to anxiety, denial, fear, and even despair as you experience any sort of drawdown in the trade or any sort of adverse move in the market. And this often happens, in volatile market conditions. And we're actually going to focus on that tonight as a case study with the recent Corona crash in February and March, because this psychology curve that you see here played out in February and March to a very extreme degree. And so what happens is when people are, or I should say when the market really has a high level of financial risk, people tend to be greedy. So the crowd tends to get greedy and start buying for a variety of reasons, and we'll cover those here in a second. And then what happens is this anxiety, denial, fear, and despair start to set in. People become fearful and they sell out of their investments, often too early or at the wrong time because of their panic. It's panic selling. So really, when they should be investing or entering into trades, they're selling. And so that process often gets repeated on a perpetual cycle. And this is the process or the psychology curve that we want to break. And really much of the difficulty in trading can be boiled down to psychology. All right, so the psychology of failure boils down to these key points. Anytime we enter a directional trade, obviously our goal is to buy low and sell high, but unfortunately that goes against our human instinct. And that's why even very famous, successful investors make mistakes and they buy high and sell low, the opposite of what we should be doing. So instead, when a security is going down, for instance, in the recent Corona crash and the market's tanking, 30%, we sell, we panic. And then when a security's already gone up, we buy it. Okay, and that's a lot of kind of what's going on right now. There's a lot of fear of missing out in the market right now. So that's driving prices higher, in addition to some fundamental things like positive quarterly earnings. But we'll look more at the psychology component and look at a contrarian approach to overcome this. So what happens is we panic when price is falling because we're afraid of losing money, right? That's every trader's biggest fear. We're all in this to make money. And so if you start to lose money, we can panic, and that's where emotions take over. And then we buy when it's rising because, again, it's that whole FOMO mentality. We're afraid of missing out. And then to compound that problem, we're wired to repeatedly make this same mistake. So we buy high and sell low because that's what our emotions tell us to do. And without a solid trading plan, we're really vulnerable to our emotions. And even with a trading plan, a lot of people abandon their rules, that they have set forth, their trading plan that they have set forth prior to entering the market. It's very difficult to stick to those sometimes. And then on top of that, if you're lacking a really good strategy to identify momentum shifts, meaning you don't really know when to get in, buy low, or get out and sell high, which is surprisingly a lot of traders and investors, they act on gut instinct or tips or a variety of things. It can pose a real major problem for inexperienced traders and investors, and even really experienced traders and investors, as I've seen a lot of my own colleagues make these types of mistakes, and I'm certainly not immune to those myself. I'm a human, and emotions are an important component there. All right, so what we're going to do tonight is we're going to turn the tables on this whole kind of standard psychology curve. What you'll see 90+% of traders and investors, both retail and professional, make. And so using the old Warren Buffett adage, be fearful when others are greedy, and then we'll add to that and say we're going to be greedy when others are fearful. And that's where the Slingshot setup is going to help you guys buy low and sell high. And so we'll look at how I use this Slingshot setup to turn the tables and be fearful when other people are, when there's a high level of financial risk and other people are greedy, or be greedy when it's really the best time for trading. All right, so here's what I'm going to give you guys tonight to make it easier. First of all, we'll discover the slingshot trade that's worked 100% of the time. So there's not much out there in the market, and by the way, I've been trading for a little over 20 years now, that works with this type of consistency. But believe it or not, this setup that I'm going to share with you tonight has played itself out in every circumstance 100% of the time. And again, I've never come across something that has that degree of accuracy. So I'll show you how to identify the setup. I'm going to show you how to trade the setup. We'll look at how to profit from the setup, how to get in near the bottom and out near the top. You'll never get in right at the bottom or right at the top on a consistent basis. You might get lucky here one or two times, but we'll get in pretty close at the bottom and out pretty close at the top. Okay, so that's good. And then we'll talk about how to apply this setup to any market in any time frame. So I realize that we have probably a wide spectrum of trading personalities, trading styles, investing styles, and so forth. So regardless of whether you're an intraday trader or a longer-term swing trader or position trader, we can apply this to any time frame. And I'll show you how to eliminate the majority of your losing trades. So I'm going to show you a really cool trick that you can actually apply to any strategy, not just the slingshot setup, to help eliminate a lot of your losing trades. It will weed out false signals with virtually any system and any indicator. And then we'll go through some trade examples together. We'll look at some charts and examples. And then if you stick with me to the end, I'm going to show you how you can copy my success and get my trade signals that I use to make a living in the markets. And it's a really great tool that I'm very happy to share with you guys. And we generally only share this on special events like this. So consider yourself lucky for being here tonight, because I'm very happy that you have the opportunity not only to learn the slingshot trade setup, but get access to a tool that can make it even more powerful than it already is on its own. So I want to start out by imagining if you could buy low and sell high without any guesswork, right? So many of us use way too much guesswork in our trading decisions, even if we have a very algorithmic or well-defined system. If we're executing it manually, it's almost impossible not to incorporate some degree of guesswork, because we all have gut instincts. We all have, base current decisions on past occurrences, and so there's a bias there, right? And that can interfere with our success. So what we're going to do is we're going to overcome that with a specific volatility study that's actually made this possible in terms of buying low and selling high since the beginning of the markets. And then I'll show you a unique setup I call the slingshot. This is a proprietary setup that I've developed that's allowed traders to buy low and sell high with 100% accuracy. Now, when I say that, because it is a bold claim, I'm not saying that you can, every single trade you make, win 100% of those trades. What I'm saying is if you can identify this slingshot setup, because it doesn't occur all the time, but when it does occur, I can show you how it plays out with 100% accuracy. In other words, you can know with a high degree of accuracy when the market's likely bottoming and when it's likely to go back up, and not only that, where it's likely to go back up to. And that's probably the most important aspect of the slingshot setup, because it's what I call the trader's dilemma, because once you get into to a trade, it's very difficult to know when to get out, because none of us have a crystal ball. We don't know how far a market's going to run before it turns back around. And this setup helps solve that problem. It also warns of potential market sell-offs. So not only can you use it to buy low and sell high, you can also use it to warn you of a potential sell-off. In fact, it did a really nice job at giving us a warning of the recent Corona crash in February and March. So we'll look at that as well. So once the bands of this volatility study cannot be stretched any further, they must bounce back. It's an inevitability, and that's what makes this setup so powerful. And this rubber band effect makes it possible to accurately identify tops and bottoms in the market. All right. So this is a chart of the recent Corona crash. So this probably looks all too familiar to you guys. And if we were in a room live together, I'd probably see a lot of faces cringing right now, because this was a painful time in the market. This is what we're going to look at, and we'll look at other examples too, but this is really the most recent one. And I took this screenshot, obviously, back in July before we're now hitting new all-time highs. But this is kind of what it looks like. And thinking back to that psychology curve that we just looked at a little bit earlier, this is when most traders are buying. So this was back in towards the end of February. The market's hitting all-time highs here, kind of like we are now. And this is where people are buying. They have that FOMO mentality. They don't want to miss out on profits in the market. So this is when 90% plus of traders and investors are getting in. They're trying to make money. They've seen the market running up for the past 10 years. We're in an unprecedented bull run, and all of a sudden the market crashes, and in a matter of weeks it's down over 30%. Okay, so this is really when you should be looking to sell. All right, and then as the market's tanking, when most other traders and investors are fearful and panicking, and you get all this panic selling and people unraveling positions, this is when we should look at buying, right? When most other traders are selling. And then as the market rebounds, this is when we want to start looking at getting out, scaling out of our positions, taking profits, or going to cash, okay, when most other traders are buying. So hopefully that you can kind of see the cycle here and the contrarian approach that you can take to kind of turn this on its head and do the opposite to be more consistent, okay? So this is what the Slingshot setup kind of looks like, and we'll get into the mechanics of it here in a minute and how to really identify it, etc. So before we do that, just a little quick background on myself. Oops, looks like we have some issues with the animations. And so I'll just go ahead and let you know what was on the slide here, because it's advancing to the next release of my bullet points. But for those of you who haven't attended any of my previous educational events, I'm the Chief Investment Strategist at Altos Trading. I've been trading for a little over 20 years now. I trade equities, ETFs, options, futures, and Forex. I launched or founded Altos Trading about close to 6 years ago with the intent of helping other aspiring traders and investors become successful, because I spent well over a decade with going through a lot of trials and tribulations, right? The learning curve with trading is very steep. There's a lot of failure. Most people don't make it. And I certainly failed many, many times before I became successful. And so I began helping friends and family overcome that. And I really enjoyed seeing people become successful in a shorter period of time. Spending 10 years or longer getting to a point of consistent success is very difficult, and it's why most people don't even get there. So my goal is to help shorten the learning curve, and so I've done that by launching online educational courses, trade alert services, trading software, etc., to help our students get there. And we currently have over 30,000 students in over 100 countries across the globe, and we have a lot of students who have become professional, successful traders using our methodologies. And I've also recently launched a hedge fund called Altos Capital, where I employ a lot of the methodologies that I teach to our students. So that's a little background on myself. And so we'll go ahead and move on from here. And so by the end of our session tonight, again, we'll spend about 45 minutes to an hour together. You're going to discover one trade setup that's produced massive returns going back to the beginning of the stock market. So again, you can go all the way back to the 1800s at the dawn of the stock market and verify that this Slingshot setup actually works 100% of the time. And it's not failed even once, including in the recent Corona crash, as we'll look at, which was the most severe sell-off in terms of magnitude and severity that we've ever seen. And the cool thing is it happens over and over again with astounding predictability. So whether you're just starting out or you're a seasoned pro and you've been trading for quite some time, this is must-have information for today's markets. We're only going to see increases in volatility probably through the end of the year. And we're only going to see the markets become more and more volatile and difficult to trade. And so I really want you guys to be armed with this tool to help you navigate the markets more effectively. So you're going to discover why volatility is one of the only leading indicators of market direction. And then I'll show you how to identify when markets may be vulnerable to a sell-off. And I promise this will completely turn your trading around, number one, because it's going to eliminate a lot of the fear that you experience in trading. And it'll help you be more confident, okay? Now, in addition to all the other benefits of really being able to pinpoint these areas of high risk or high opportunity in the markets. And then I'll show you how to identify when the market is likely to go up and how to determine exactly how far the market is likely to go up. All right, so that, again, that's that whole trader's dilemma. You know, you're in a position, but when do you get out and take profits? We'll solve that problem for you. And then I'll show you how to get your hands on a tool that will change your trading forever. This is a tool that I've developed that I use in my own personal trading as well as my hedge fund. It certainly changed my life. It's allowed me to trade for a living, and it certainly helped me navigate the recent Corona crash. I actually did very well in February and March, as I'll share with you on the session tonight. All right, so let's start up by imagining a slingshot. All right, so as we all know, when a slingshot's pulled back, the muscle energy from our arms transferred to the elastic energy in the bands of the slingshot. All right, and then once we release the bands, the elastic energy is transferred to the stone as energy of motion. And this was what is referred to in physics as kinetic energy. All right, and we can actually apply kinetic energy to the markets. All right, so basically, kinetic energy in the markets equals demand, buying pressure, or supply, selling pressure. And so it works both directions. And it's really the difference is the catalyst, right? So with a slingshot, you know, it's the catalyst, or the muscle energy is our catalyst, and then in the markets, it's supply and demand, or buying and selling pressure. But here's the key concept. Once the band becomes overstretched, it gives us a buy signal, and we can enter the market with a high degree of confidence that prices will go up to the initial resting point of the band. All right, so let's read that again because it's a really key concept as we get into learning the slingshot setup. Once the band becomes overstretched, that's when it gives us a buy signal. So remember, in that psychology curve, that's when other traders are panicking and fearful, and you know, they're panic selling and taking losses on positions. Okay, so we're going to take a contrarian approach. Once those become overstretched, we buy, and we can enter with a high degree of confidence that price will go up to that initial resting point of the band. All right, so this is kind of what it looks like. We're going to apply the slingshot effect to the markets now. And we use volatility because it's really the only forward-looking predictive indicator. It gives us a lot of good information when we use it correctly, right? So we use the Bollinger Bands to predict these volatility expansions and contractions. And what they're going to do is they're going to tell us when prices move too far from a mean, or the moving average, and is likely to reverse direction, okay? And I'm going to show you here in seconds a really unique and cool way to use these volatility bands that virtually no other trader or investor uses them in this fashion, okay? And so we'll look at some of the common ways that are used in the markets and why those aren't necessarily the best ways to use them. And then we'll look at how to use these as they apply to the slingshot setup. And when we do that, we can actually pinpoint turning points in the security with really astounding accuracy. All right, so this is actually the slingshot in effect right here. So you see price is hugging this lower volatility band. And if you're not real familiar with the Bollinger Bands, not to worry, we'll kind of get into those here in a second too. And you see a sell-off here in the security, right? So prices are going down. And this is where people get trapped. You know, they might be long the market and they expect a trend to continue, and it starts to go against them and they panic and sell. All right. So let's kind of look at how to overcome this and get in near the bottom rather than sell, and get out as the slingshot setup ensues. All right, so if you're not real familiar with the Bollinger Bands, the good news is they're a common technical indicator that's available on virtually any retail trading platform. So we'll go into a little bit about how they work and what they are. But basically, in order to calculate them, we take a simple moving average of the securities price. So that's the middle band that you see. And then we take the standard deviation of the securities price. So these are the two outer bands. Okay, and standard deviation is simply a mathematical measurement of average variance. All right, and so that's really what tells us, you know, the extent of the volatility in the market. All right, and so the standard deviation measures how spread out numbers are from the moving average. Okay, so that's what's giving us that volatility reading. And basically you calculate it by taking the square root of the variance, and that's the average of the squared differences of the mean. And then from there you multiply that by the standard deviation value and multiply it by 2. We use a 2 standard deviation measure, and we then add and subtract those amounts from the middle band. That's the moving average, and that's what produces the upper and lower bands. Again, don't Jay goes simple. Yeah, so don't worry too much about it. I just want to give you a little background of what it is, but you don't need to actually run these calculations. Again, and I'll give you my settings that I use for these as well here in a minute. But because the standard deviation is the measure of volatility, when the market becomes more volatile, you're going to see those outer bands widen, and then when it is less volatile, you'll see the bands contract. And that's a way a lot of traders and investors use the Bollinger Bands, but there's a lot of inherent flaws to that method, and I'll show you why here in a minute. So here are the settings that I use. They're just the standard settings. More than likely, this is what the settings are going to default to on your platform. All right, so I use a 20-period SMA for the middle band, and then 2 standard deviations from the mean for the 2 outer bands, the upper and lower band. All right, so really simple there. So let's look at some of the ways that the Bollinger Bands are commonly used, okay? We'll look at a few of those, and then I'll kind of explain why they may not be the best. So one common way to use them is buy at the bottom band, sell at the top band, okay? This is probably one of the more common ways I see them used, and it can work in certain market conditions, but the problem is when it fails big, right? And it wipes out a lot of winners. So the problem is price can hug the upper band or the lower band for extended periods of time. And when that inevitably happens, that's where you can really get screwed, so to speak. I mean, it can take out a bunch of winners. All right, so for that reason, we don't use that technique. All right, the next commonly used method is band contraction and expansion. And I do like this one. It can be a good indicator of an impending big move in a security. So when the outer bands, the upper and lower band, are relatively close together and close to the middle band, that means that market volatility is low, right? And when market volatility gets lower, the VIX is low, it's just a matter of time until it goes up, right? So that's the volatility, contraction, expansion we see in the markets all the time. Now the problem with this method is that we don't know in which direction the expansion is going to occur. So it could go either way, right? You could get a volatility expansion to the upside, you could get one to the downside. So in terms of identifying a directional move in the market, that's really not an effective way to do it. But it can tell us, when volatility is low and high. When you see the bands diverge and get very wide and far away from each other, that's when volatility is high. So we don't use that method for that reason. Another common method is to buy or sell at the middle band. And this can be a good method in certain market conditions. When we're in strong uptrends and you have all 3 bands pointing up, this tactic can work fairly well. But the problem is it fails in sideways ranging markets, right? And I don't like to use methods that fail or that only work in very specific market conditions and then fail in other conditions, because we can't predict the market with 100% certainty. And so when that inevitably happens, it can wipe you out. So for that reason, we don't use the buy or sell at the middle band either. And the last method is my proprietary Slingshot method, which I have found out of these 4 methods is the most effective and accurate way to use the Bollinger Bands. And what we do is we wait for the lower band to break. And I'll explain what that means here in a minute. But basically what happens is price hugs the lower band and ultimately rebounds to where the breach initially occurred. Okay, and this is really the best way to become a contrarian trader and buy low and sell high and do the opposite of what 90% plus of other traders and investors are doing. All right, so when using the Bollinger Bands to buy low and sell high, we're going to first, consider what are the Bollinger Bands, why and how can they allow us to do that? Well, again, they're a moving average, right? Moving averages, that's the center line, are lagging. So they don't necessarily give us a good entry point. Yeah, you get mean reversion and all these things, but that doesn't necessarily tell us where the market's going in the future. The Slingshot setup, on the other hand, can, and it does it by in a certain way. So basically what we do is we've already identified the fact that price can exceed or hug a band envelope for prolonged periods of time during strong trends, right? And that's what happened in the February-March Corona crash. We'll go back to that chart here in just a minute and look at that. And so what we do is we wait for the lower band to break. Okay, that's where price is hugging that lower band. And then we wait for a buy signal. And then we exit when price returns to the breaking point. Okay, so this Slingshot setup occurs with really astounding predictability. In fact, you can go back to every market sell-off, market crash, etc., and verify it for yourself. In fact, the major market indices, so if we're looking at like the SPX, the S&P 500, the NDX, the Russell 2000, all these major indices, they've all returned to the initial volatility breakout with 100% accuracy, okay? And that includes all 4 major market corrections we saw back in 2018. It includes the flash crash of 2015, the flash crash of 2010, the flash crash following the 2008 mortgage crisis. If you're trading back then, you'll recall the market lost more than half its value in a very short period of time. Going back 20 years, the dot-com bubble, even the recent Corona crash. Every black swan event, every market correction, major crash, bear market, you name it, it's predicted every single one of those. So let's look at not only is it predicted it, it's played out in the manner that I've explained to you. And we're going to look at that now on this chart of the S&P 500. So this is a daily chart of the SPX. And Lori, I set the bands at 2 standard deviations. Let me grab a drink of water here real quick. Just 2 standard deviations, and then the middle band is a 20-period SMA. So that's what I have plotted here on the chart of the S&P. And you can see on the left side of this chart, as we were hitting all-time highs in the market, we're in this 10-year unprecedented bull run. We have very low market volatility. So you see the bands are very close together. And as the market hits all-time highs, and there begins to be panic selling around the unknowns of COVID-19, we start to see the market turn over. All right, and that's what you see happening here as we hit an all-time high on February 19th, and then we start to sell off in the coming weeks, okay? And so this is kind of what that Corona crash slingshot looks like. So let's take a look at what this looks like. All right, so you'll notice that price is hitting the lower band, right? And so oftentimes in a market like this, people will start to buy because we're 2 standard deviations away from the mean, and this could be a good buying point, right? Well, no, wrong. This is where we want to take a contrarian approach. This is where the bands start to get pulled back, all right? And this is where we're at risk of a sell-off, all right? So keep that psychology curve in mind, right, that we looked at the beginning of the session. This is what's occurring right now in 90% of traders and investors' minds. This is what they're afraid of. The market's crashing. All right, so this is where we would have wanted to sell as the rubber bands are getting pulled back, as the market's starting to exhibit weakness. All right, and then the market sells off over 30%. This is actually where we want to be buying when everyone else is panicking and taking losses. And then what happens after we start turning the corner and prices start to go back up? They return right back to the exact same level as where the slingshot setup started out. Okay, so what you're seeing here on the left side of your chart, this is where the price is hugging the lower band. This is where the slingshot setup starts. This is where we want to be fearful. And then as we start to reverse direction, where we want to be greedy, the bottom, and I'll show you some methods here to get in on these sell-offs here in a little bit. And then this is where we solve the trader's dilemma. Price is going up, and I can't tell you how many times I've had friends, family, students, and many of our members call me up or send me an email and say, Jeff, how is the market still going up in the context of everything that's going on with COVID-19 and the economy shutting down and all these really horrible fundamental factors, because the market doesn't truly care about fundamentals. It might for a short period of time. If you get a slew of negative quarterly earnings, yeah, it's going to negatively impact the market, but for a fairly short period of time. Ultimately, what drives the market is fear and greed, supply and demand, right? Fear and greed drives supply and demand, and that's ultimately what causes prices to go up or down. All right, so I can tell you as a professional money manager and a hedge fund owner that institutions are using this mentality. They are selling when other people are greedy, and they're buying when other people are fearful. So that is really the answer to why prices were driven back up so dramatically from this low back in March, because institutions saw opportunity to take advantage of people's fear and come in here and buy when prices were low, knowing that this buying pressure would push prices back up to the volatility expansion. Okay, so that's what the slingshot setup looks like in the recent Corona crash. I often get asked, does this work because I share this a lot, with market indices, but does it work on individual equity? Well, absolutely. The same psychology plays out on stocks, on really any security you can trade. So let's look at Apple. This is a daily chart of Apple. You'll notice on the left half of the chart, we're in this nice bull trend, bull uptrend. And what's happening with trader psychology? People have fear of missing out on the uptrend. They're buying Apple. They're buying call options. They don't want to miss out on this. And some people get lucky and are able to get in and out as the trend stays intact. But far more people get burned by this as the slingshot setup starts to set up. So see there, as price starts to hit the lower band. In fact, interestingly, we got a bullish reversal candle right off that lower band. And that tricked a lot of traders, right? They're like, okay, price rejected that lower band. It's going to go up. I'm going to buy a call option. I'm going to buy shares of Apple, and I'm going to kill it. Well, unfortunately, Apple tanked from, it topped out close to $220 a share and tanked all the way down to 168 bucks a share on this slingshot setup. So there's the beginning of the setup. There's the sell-off. This is actually where we want to be buying. And what happens? Price returns right back up to where the volatility expansion or the slingshot setup initiated. All right, so that's what the slingshot setup looks like. All right, here's another example on the QQQ. So you'll notice again, we're in this, this is back in, I believe, 2018, 2019, going back almost a couple years, but we have kind of a similar situation where, price has gone up on the left side of your chart, and here's the beginning of the slingshot. Price starts to hug the lower Bollinger Band, and we see a significant sell-off. Okay, so it hits the lower band at about $176 a share, and it tanks all the way down to $140 a share, roughly. All right, so that's the slingshot setup. This is where we want to be buying, and as soon as the market reverses direction, it goes right back up to where the volatility expansion initiated. See that? There's the slingshot. I often get asked, Jeff, does this work on intraday charts, smaller time frames? Absolutely. Again, it's trader psychology. All right, so you'll notice on the left side of this chart, the left half of the chart, those traders that are using the Bollinger Bands to buy at the bottom band and sell at the top band were probably very exuberant, overly optimistic, even euphoric as they're buying at the bottom band, selling at the top band. That worked very nicely there for 2 or 3 times until the slingshot setup comes in, and this is where we're going to be contrarian, wait for price to start hugging the lower band, and wait for the sell-off to ensue. This is the slingshot setup. And instead of taking a high-risk trade at the lower band, around 53.20 a share, we wait for the sell-off. And then we get in and scoop up shares or buy call options or a variety of different strategies that you could use. And we wait for the price to rebound. And where does it rebound? Where do we start to look for profits when other people are getting greedy again and starting to get back into Apple? Right where the volatility expansion began. All right, so this is, again, solves that trader's dilemma, and it helps us get out with profits intact, okay? So here's how to identify the buy zone. So, this is probably the question at the top of everybody's mind. How do you know when to get in after the sell-off? And there are a lot of different methodologies and techniques we can use to get in on a volatility expansion. And unfortunately with our limited time tonight, we can't get into all the nuances of how to do this, but I can give you some quick tips on how to do it. You can use bullish reversal candles. Maybe you'll get a bullish engulfing pattern or something of that nature to help you. I generally, you can use like a 2-bar high setup and wait for price to close above the high. That can usually be a pretty reliable way to get in on the reversal. You can wait for price to come up and trade halfway or midway between the lower and middle band to confirm the direction. You can even wait for it to trade past the middle band to really confirm. So there's a lot of different ways or techniques we can use to do that. But the trick really is to identify when the band is overextended and ready to snap back. So there's a lot of indicators you could incorporate into this, like the MACD, stochastics, different indicators you can use to identify reversals. And again, we can't completely accurately buy at the bottom, right? So one technique that I often use is to scale in. So I realize that I can't perfectly time a bottom, so I might scale in 50-50. I might buy half of my position as the underlying security sells off, let's say 15 or 20%, knowing that a 40 to 50% sell-off would really be in a very extreme situation. And so I may wait to enter the other half of my position more on, in that range. And if I don't hit it, then I'm just in on half my trade, and I know that with a very high degree of accuracy that the slingshot trade is going to play out, and I'm going to make profits on my trade. But really the trick is to identify that situation when the band is overextended. So what I've done is I've spent more than 10 years of my trading career and thousands of hours trying to determine when momentum is shifting. So the best really scenario for when to get into these momentum shifts, to identify when the trend is starting to reverse and the slingshot is about to release and go back to the starting point of the band. And then once I got the formula dialed in, I then had to configure it to work on all time frames, because this slingshot setup does play out on many different time frames and securities. And then I had to do that across all markets, and something that was adaptable, because the markets are always changing. Volatility is constantly changing. It's all a moving target, right? So that's why most systems and strategies fail, because they work around a specific set of rules. So I had to design it in something that was adaptable, that can reliably predict market trends. And the result was a tool that I developed and used myself to accurately identify the buy and sell signals near the outer channels of the Bollinger Bands. And I developed something that can actually do this up to 3 candles in advance of the move. And so instead of having to wait for the move to occur, I've developed an algorithm that can reliably identify it before it actually starts to snap back. And so when you formulate this combination of momentum indicators and then combine them with volatility studies like the Bollinger Bands and price action setups like I'm going to show you here in just a second, the results can be really astounding, and you can actually accurately identify buy and sell signals at the outer bands of the Bollinger Bands. Bruce, my hedge fund the name of my hedge fund is Altos Capital. And so that's what we programmed into our proprietary trading algorithm software called TradeTrend. And what TradeTrend does is it accurately identifies buy and sell signals at the bottom and tops of the slingshot setup. And it does it with a proprietary blend of momentum indicators that can help warn you of market sell-offs as the band starts to pull back, and help you get in with a high degree of accuracy as the band gets pulled back and is at a point where it needs to snap back and return to its initial resting point. And again, this can work and be applied to really any market, stocks, ETFs, futures, Forex, whatever you guys trade in any time frame. We also have developed it so you can back test it and actually go back, and I challenge all of our TradeTrend members to do this, and go back and look at all these major sell-offs, black swan events, and market crashes, and look at how this slingshot trade sets up and how TradeTrend has reliably given us the warning signal before it occurs and the buy signal before the market reverses and goes back up. We also have a lot of members who use it to supercharge their option strategies. But ultimately, we designed this to help you guys trade like a pro without guesswork, right? Because ultimately, you need to know when to get in, the best time to get in, the best time to get out, and how to manage your position as you're in the trade. And TradeTrend does that for you. Now, I told you I'd give you a little trick to help eliminate a lot of your losing trades. And this is what I'm going to do here. And it's actually something we programmed into the TradeTrend algorithm. And it's a specific type of order, a buy stop or a sell stop order, to confirm the momentum direction. So this can really be applied to any system or strategy or indicator, but we've automatically programmed it into TradeTrend to help increase the reliability and accuracy. And so basically what we do is we use a buy stop order to enter long trades, and then we use a sell stop order to enter short trades. And what this does versus what most people do, which is use a market or a limit order to get into a position, is it filters out false signals and improves the consistency and profitability of virtually any system that's momentum based, because what we do is we put the buy stop order above the high of the signal candle. So that way, if there's follow through on the momentum, we're pretty much immediately in a profitable trade. If it fails and it never there's no follow through on the momentum, then we just don't get into the trade. And same thing with a short trade. So a sell stop order would be used below the low of the candle of the sell signal. And if the momentum doesn't follow through, then we just don't get into the trade. If it does, then at least we're in a high probability trade where the momentum has already exhibited the price action that we expected it to and the direction that we expected it to. And so this is a really handy way to enter momentum-based trades or trend-based trades. And it's one that, again, we programmed into Trade Trend. Now, I often get asked, so Jeff, how did you do using Trade Trend in the recent Corona crash with real money, right? So I don't believe in hypothetical results because they really don't portray what's possible within a trading strategy or a software or an algorithm. So I put everything to the test with real money. And I've been using this tool myself for many years to make money in the markets. I was actually very cautious in February and March. I was trading very small position sizes. You can see on my position sizes there on my February statement, I was 1, 2, 3 or 4 contracts. Nothing crazy here. Mostly in cash, as I knew that volatility, the VIX was going up, and there was a lot of uncertainty around COVID-19. But at the end of the month, I still profited just a little over $13,000 using the Trade Trends software. And then as things started, the Slingshot setup, the bands were expanding, the sell-off was accelerating. That's when I got a bit more aggressive in March because I know how well this Slingshot setup works, and I know how reliable my Trade Trend signals are. I started to put a little bit more money to work here. I was still keeping my position sizes about the same, but I was trading a lot more positions. And so in March, I profited over $27,000. So in total, in the Corona crash, I made over $40,000 trading fairly conservatively as the market sold off over 30%, all right, using the Trade Trend tool and the Slingshot setup. So when you combine these two, you're unstoppable. I mean, the power that this can give you in these types of volatile market conditions is really incredible. And these are real money results from my personal TD Ameritrade account to back that up. And so let's look at some more chart examples to give you an idea of what the signal will look like on your chart. So what Trade Trend does is it gives you a buy or a sell signal. And what sets it apart from other signal softwares out there is that, and that's the red or green arrow you see on your chart here, that's simply the warning signal. So unlike a lot of other indicators, when you get a buy or a sell signal, you've got to be ready to pull the trigger and enter the market right there, then and there with a market or a limit order. With Trade Trend, it gives you a warning and the exact entry price up to 3 candles in advance. So if you're trading off a daily chart, you know your potential entry price up to 3 days in advance. And that's where you enter your buy stop or your sell stop order. If you're an intraday trader, let's say you're trading off an hourly chart, Trade Trend will give you the suggested entry price on a buy or a sell signal up to 3 candles in advance. So there's nothing to do other than enter your order at that point in time. And then if the trade is triggered, that's the dot that you see after the arrow that confirms. And this is a chart of United States oil, U.S. oil, with 4 signals. 3 nice winners, 1 little loser. And if you had traded options, these are all options examples because a lot of our members use this tool to trade options. If you had bought calls and puts on these signals, 10 at-the-money contracts, the gain on these 4 signals was over 1,600%, turning every 2,000 in over 43,000. Here's another example, Bank of America. We had nice, looks like 7 signals here. If you had bought calls and puts, at-the-money calls and puts on each of these signals using contingent options orders at the suggested entry price from Trade Trend. The gain on these was over 1,900%. This is Chipotle Mexican, CMG. This was when the stock was in a nice uptrend, and these 4 signals resulted in gains of over 2,100% buying at-the-money call options. So this is the power behind Trade Trend. Okay, and again, you get the warning signal, that's the arrow, and then you get the confirmed trigger, that's the green dot. Okay, so we don't jump in right at the warning signal. That's just telling us the likely direction of the underlying security. So we've designed Trade Trend to work in any market, any time frame, with any size account. We have a lot of members who are just starting out with small accounts, and this helps these members improve their accuracy and grow their accounts over time. And we have a lot of intraday traders, long-term traders, etc. But what Trade Trend does, again, that sets it apart is it provides predictive buy and sell signals. So unlike other indicators, it gives you that advanced warning of up to 3 candles before the move occurs, okay? And then if there's no follow-through on the momentum, because we are using buy stop and sell stop limit orders on these signals, and by the way, Trade Trend gives you the exact entry price on all these signals, so it doesn't leave you guessing, okay, there was a buy signal, now where do I get in? It's going to say there's a buy signal on this security, and here's the exact price and type of order you should use to get in. And it does it before the move, up to 3 candles. And some of the moves don't, some of them don't trigger. So if there's no follow through on the prediction, then there's just no trade. We cancel our order and we move on to the next signal. But that's the key here. We get it up to 3 candles in advance and then we wait. If the trade doesn't trigger in the next 3 candles, we get out. We cancel our order. If it does trigger, trade trend will then give you the trailing stop to help you manage the trade. So it's going to give you a trailing stop level after every candle. Again, regardless of what time frame you're trading in, every candle will print a new trailing stop. So it helps you get in, and in setups like the Slingshot, it will help you manage that setup and get out at the right time. And it's predicted every major market crash and rebound in the history of the market with 100% accuracy. Now, the signals themselves are not 100% accurate. Nothing is. But when you apply it to the Slingshot, it has given us accurate buy and sell signals in the Slingshot setup going all the way back to the beginning of the market. And you can verify that for yourself. And here's some examples now of some charts with the trade trend indicator applied to them. So this is the flash crash going back to August 2015. And you'll notice on the left half of the chart, we're in obviously this is the chart of the S&P 500, very sideways ranging market. This is where that buying at the bottom, selling at the top of the band worked out pretty nicely there for a couple months. But then trade trend gives us a surprising sell signal as price starts to hug the lower band and the VIX starts to go up. And this is when we see the flash crash and the market just tanks over the course of 4 or 5 days. So there's the sell warning from trade trend, and it gave us that warning as the market was starting to turn over before it really crashed. And then it gave us a nice buy signal as we see a double bottom there, and the Slingshot setup ensues as price goes right back up to the volatility expansion there near the 2050 level. Here's an example going back further to the 2008 mortgage crisis. So again, we have a lot of overly optimistic, overly exuberant traders and investors entering the market here. And then as the housing crisis ensues, trade trend actually gives us a sell signal here towards the end of May 2008. And the market shortly after loses more than half of its value. And trade trend actually gave us a buy signal, a buy warning, right near the bottom as the S&P hit and reversed around the 800 level. And then here's another example going back even further. This is the 2000.com bubble going back about 20 years. Same kind of scenario. You know, we see a lot of overly optimistic traders and investors with FOMO. They don't want to miss out on all the uptrend that's occurred in the market. And so here we actually get a sell signal from trade trend. You see that Slingshot setup starting to play out there as prices hugging the lower band. And so before the market just tanks, we get the sell signal warning from trade trend, and it also gives us a very nice accurate buy warning right near the bottom of the sell-off before the Slingshot setup really starts to tell us to go long and get back in to take advantage of the rebound up to the into the 1400 level on the S&P. All right, so virtually every system will produce winning trades, and I've shown you how trade trend can do that, right? Every system has winners and losers. The problem is they don't keep you out of the market when conditions are not favorable, and you end up giving back your profits on the losing trades. And that's what we designed trade trend to overcome. When you do have a losing situation, when there's the expectation is, you know, the market's going to move in a certain direction and it just doesn't pan out, trade trend gets you out quickly, and when it does work out, it keeps you in to take advantage of the trend and capture as much profit as possible. All right, so that's what has separated trade trend from other signal softwares out there. And here's more real money proof of that. Again, I'm almost hesitant to show this. I'm a really modest guy. I'm not a bragger or anything of that nature. But I believe if I'm going to offer something to prospective students, it should be backed up with real money. And that's what this is here on your screen. These are real money screenshots from my TD Ameritrade account using the trade trend tool in the futures market. And this is an example of what's possible trading only one contract. So in every trade here you see on the screen, yeah, there's a couple losers in there. And again, I mentioned trade trend helps contain losers and help profits run on the successful trades. This was possible with trading only one contract per position because it does allow profits to run. But you can see that I've been able to make over $6,000, over $8,000, over $5,000 in a single day. So here's my promise to you guys for joining tonight. I want to help you have days like these, and I'm going to give you access to a tool that lets you copy my trades tonight, okay? So what we've done is we've set up a one-time opportunity for you to join me to discover how I make money like I've shown you tonight in my actual live TD Ameritrade brokerage account, as well as in my hedge fund, Altos Capital. And we're going to reveal every one of my special techniques and indicators that make profits like this possible without anything held back. So I've shown you the Slingshot setup, and here's everything else you get in addition to that if you want to check out Trade Trend. We're going to offer you 12 months of Trade Trend for stocks, futures, and Forex. Again, Trade Trend gives you exact entry and exit signals, all right? And it also gives you trailing stops to manage your positions. We also hold live interactive trade sessions where I show you how I use the Trade Trend tool in my own trading generally 2 to 3 times a month. We hold these live trade sessions. We hold them after market hours, after work, so people who have full-time day jobs can join us. We also record all of these and post them in our members area, so they never go away. If you miss anything or want to go back and you're a new member and go back and see all of our past sessions, you can do that. So you get that members area access for all of our replays and recorded training sessions. You also get full support and personal coaching from me. So I conduct the live trade sessions. I don't have somebody else in my company do it. I do it myself. I'm the trader, and I want to be there for you guys and help you be successful. So I don't palm this off on somebody else in the company. I'm here for you. I'm here to help you, and you do get support from me. I also will help answer any emails that you guys send with questions. We also teach trade adjustments to fix losing trades. So if you're an options trader, this is something that we teach our arsenal of tools and techniques to fix losing options trades with different adjustment techniques. So we also provide all that training. And then I also give you a list of some of my most profitable tickers to trade in our members area and on our live sessions. So again, here's everything that comes with Trade Trend. You get the accurate buy and sell signals near the top and bottom of the Bollinger Bands. It can help predict trends, both short-term and long-term, in any market in any time frame. You can also use it to back test. You can go back on your chart. Once the signals, we get asked this a lot, once the signals appear on your chart, do they go away? No, once you get a confirmed signal on your chart, you can go back as far back in the market as you want, and you can look at all the past signals, okay, and all the trades. So we don't repaint or do anything like that to make our software appear better than it is. What you see is what you get. You can also use it to supercharge your option strategies and help you trade without any guesswork. All right, so we put this package together, and I'll tell you how you can take advantage of it here in just a second to help you cut your learning curve and trade like a pro. So even if you're just starting out, or even if you're a seasoned veteran, we have really a spectrum of experience levels that use this tool with success. And so when you consider whether or not to try out Trade Trend, I want you to ask yourself a few questions. Number one is, if you're able to avoid the next major market crash and even make money from it, how much would that be worth to you? Because I'm fully confident we're going to see another crash or at least a significant retracement in the current uptrend probably before the end of the year, and certainly based on the outcome of the election, probably at some point in 2021, okay? And I want you guys to be prepared for that. That's really worth a lot of money. And if you're able to buy low and sell high, as I've shown you is possible with the Slingshot method, and especially in combination with the Trade Trend algorithm, I want you to ask yourself how much that's worth to you. And finally, if you had an experienced coach guide you down the path to success, how much would that be worth to you guys? I've been trading for over 20 years. I do make a living in the markets. I do trade for a living and support my family with everything that I've shown you tonight on the session. So we put together a very special trader package that includes 12 months of the Trade Trend signals. Normally we charge $14.99 for that on our website for an annual subscription. We're also giving you the live trade sessions. We charge $5.50 for that. Our personal coaching, if you were to take personal coaching from me, that's a $1,997 value. And by the way, that's lifetime, you guys. You get full access to me for as long as you want. We're also giving you exclusive invitation-only Facebook group access. We have over 700 members who use our strategies and Trade Trend in the group that you can interact with and converse with, share strategies with, ask questions with, etc. We're also throwing in our trade adjustments to fix losing trades online training course. That's a $900 value. But ultimately, we're going to teach you and help you and hold your hand to trade stocks, futures, Forex, options, whatever market you trade, and that's really priceless. We're going to throw in a couple bonuses that we're doing just special for Steve Bigelow's event tonight. Bonus number one is my online course, How to Win 97% of Your Options Trades. This is one of my core options strategies that I use, In fact, we run an alert service on this strategy, and we've actually won, going back 5 years, more than 97% of our trades, including trade adjustments. We won about 85% of them, the initial profit target, and then we adjust about 15% of them. And that course is valued at $595. Bonus number 2, I'm going to also give you guys my free ebook, How to Create Risk-Free Trades. We sell this for $97. It's a really cool strategy that I incorporate into a lot of my trades, as well as trades in my hedge fund, that can help you mitigate or even eliminate risk in a trade. And it's a really cool trick that I know you guys are going to love. So we're throwing that in for free too, as part of the Trade Trend Signal package. So altogether, the value on our package, if you bought everything retail price individually, is over $5,000. We are taking 80% off the retail price and packaging this all together for you tonight for $997. So if you want to take advantage of this, I would urge you to do it now, because we are limiting this to 50 seats. And the reason we do that is mainly because number 1, we do give you white glove setup treatment, so we're going to help you get everything set up and installed and up and running, and my partner Richard will help with that. And then, as I mentioned, I hold all the live trade sessions and help answer your questions via email, etc. And I can only handle so much of that. So we do limit these. That's not a marketing tactic. It's legit. We won't sell more than 50 of these. Once they're sold out, they're sold out. We simply couldn't handle anything beyond that. So if you want to take one of those spots, go to TradeTrendNow.com. You get 80% off the retail price here on your screen. We are an A+ rated Better Business Bureau company. We have over 30,000 happy students across the globe in over 100 countries. And then I'm going to get to Q&A here in just a second. But I'll answer this right off the bat, because it's one of the common questions that we get. What platforms is Trade Trend available on? And so we have it on a number of platforms. We have it on Wealth Charts, which is a web-based charting platform. We also have it available on TradingView, which is another web-based charting platform. It's available on Metastock, which is a downloadable charting platform. And then we have it on a few brokers, including NinjaTrader, Thinkorswim, and TradeStation. So if you use a broker that you don't see available here, like Schwab or E-Trade or Interactive Brokers, you can't actually program signals for those platforms. So what most of those members do is they typically will go for like a web-based version like TradingView or Wealth Charts and get the signal off there, because remember, Trade Trend gives you the exact buy or sell signal with entry price up to 3 candles in advance. So you've got plenty of time to go over to your broker and enter the order type and the order price. So that's generally what we suggest if you don't want to go the broker route, or you don't have NinjaTrader, Thinkorswim, or TradeStation. So those are the available platforms. And again, we're going to throw in these 2 bonuses. My online course, I have over 1,200 students with 4.5-star ratings. And then bonus number 2 is my ebook. So again, go to TradeTrendNow.com to get 80% off this special. I'll share a little bit about what our members are saying before we get to Q&A. Jay Thomas has very impressive results. Well done. R. Julian recently wrote in. He said, excellent indicator. He uses it on TradingView. He said, so far I've made $11,230. One of the most powerful indicators I've ever used. Frank says, how refreshing to have someone produce a product that it says. I thought it was too good to be true at first, but you proved me wrong. Brian C. sent me this a couple months ago. Actually, I think it was like right before, or right around in the midst of the Corona crash. He was really struggling last year with his trading, and he came to us and decided to try out Trade Trend. So last year he was down around $42,000, and he wrote me an email and said that he's recouped all those losses and was now net positive $47,000 on Trade Trend trades. So for him, the system generated almost $90,000 of profits in only 90 days. And he said, in fact, it would have generated higher returns if not for some mistakes on his part. But he was thankful to the good Lord for leading him to our system. And then lastly, Alan. Alan was one of our early beta testers. He says that I've been involved with lots of software testing. Trade Trend does exactly as it says, and I found some nice setups. Okay, so again, guys, it only takes 1 to trade to potentially pay for your $997 lifetime subscription to our Trade Trend group. All right, so TradeTrendNow.com. I'm going to throw in a special guarantee here, guys. If you don't make money in the first 90 days using the tools and training that we give you as part of the package, I'm going to give you an extra year of Trade Trend at no cost. Okay, that's how confident I am in this tool. Again, I use it myself to make a living in the markets, and I want to see everybody that joins tonight be successful. I'm not going to leave anybody hanging. So if that doesn't happen for you, you know, we all have our different degrees and levels of success and time frames. If that doesn't happen for you in 90 days, not a problem. Okay, we get it. You know, we all have busy lives. We may not even get around to using it in the first 90 days. If you aren't successful, I'll give you an extra year at no cost. Okay. Again, tradetrendnow.com. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and open it up to Q&A, and I'll do my best. They're kind of flying through here. I'll do my best to answer. If I don't get to a question, you can always email us, support@altostrading.com, and we'll make sure to answer these. JP says last screen said lifetime. Yep. So everything you see on the package here is a lifetime package. And the Trade Trend subscription, that's the subscription component of the package. So you get 12 months of the Trade Trend signals. If you decide you want to keep using the Trade Trend signals, in addition to everything else, which is over 40 hours of training, recorded training in our members area, and the bonuses, etc., those are all yours to keep. But if you want to keep using the signals after a year, you're automatically locked in at $9.97. You'll never pay the $14.99 annual price. FT is asking, do you have a scanner? Yeah, different platforms allow you to scan in different ways. Like I know on some of the broker platforms, they have their own scanners and you can run scans. Some of them, you know, you would need to do the scanning yourself on the chart. It kind of varies by the platform. Let's see, CB is asking, will you update the Thinkorswim tool when Schwab gets involved? Yeah, if there's any updating there, that's a good question. With your package, every update, or any update I should say, any and every update is included with this. So you'll never be charged for any updates or anything like that. We'll make sure this is working if there are any changes on the broker charting platform side. Joan's asking, is this separate software? Does it work as an indicator to keep inside our trading platform? Good question, Joan. It's not a separate software. It's an add-on indicator. So, for instance, let's say you want to use it in Thinkorswim or TradeStation. We'll give you access to that. We'll give you the files, and you can import it in just like you would with any indicator, and it will be on your platform. John's asking, so is there a recurring fee? John, not for everything you see in the package. The only recurring fee is if you decide you want to renew your Trade Trend subscription. If you decide you don't, no worries. You can just cancel that, and there's no recurring fees. You still get all of our live trade sessions, coaching, courses, etc., and the bonuses. And then if you decide you want to renew the Trade Trend subscription, that would renew at $9.97. Again, but that's no obligation. That's just if you decide you want to renew. Okay, is your system compatible with Apple products? Good question. Yeah, so if you're already using a platform on your Apple computer that you saw on your screen there, then it's going to integrate with that. And probably, you know, if you're brand new and starting out, one of the web-based platforms might be the best bet there, like Wealth Charts or TradingView, because you can use those. They're browser-based. It doesn't matter what type of computer you have. Let's see, I'm just trying to, these are scrolling through really fast because I'm just trying to catch them as they come in. DDC is asking, I had to cut out of the room in the last 10 minutes and I did not hear the pricing. So that's up on the screen now. It's 80% off the retail, so we put together a special bundle package for the Candlestick Forum group today for Steve Bigelow's members only. And we took 80% off the retail value of everything and are offering it all at $9.97 to the first 50 seats that get filled. And again, to take advantage of that, you can go to tradetrendnow.com. Phil's saying TOS when it works is quite good. Yeah, TOS did have a little bit of a data error recently. Fortunately, they got that resolved. It didn't actually impact anything with Trade Trend. You know, we were on top of that. Everything was fine. But yeah, they've gotten that resolved. And so Becky's put the link in there for you, tradetrendnow.com. CB's asking, how much time do we have to decide? We don't really put a time limit on this, CB. It's just whenever the 50 seats are filled. We filled, looks like about 35 of them so far. So there's 15 seats left. So they are going fast. And you know, unfortunately, if they're filled up, we just are not going to take any more. Not to be, you know, we're not trying to be difficult or anything. It's just we can only handle so much. So Edwin's asking, what % of trades are in stocks, futures, and Forex? Well, Edwin, the cool thing about this tool is you can actually use it in any market you choose. So you can import it into your platform and then pull up whatever you would like to trade, and it will give you the buy and sell signals right there on your chart. All right, so Alex is asking, are you planning to eventually have a version that will work with the Schwab StreetMart Edge software? Alex, that's something we can look into. I know currently there isn't any ability to do indicators on Schwab like this. If that becomes possible, we can do that, especially with the merger. Lawrence is asking, do you have instructions for setup or do we need support? A good question, Lawrence. So right when you join, you're going to get a welcome email with everything you need. Actually, the first step is you're going to choose your platform that you want Trade Trend on. So you'll get that choice right when you sign up. We'll get notified. We're getting kind of late in the evening now. It's past 9 o'clock Eastern time. So give us some time tomorrow to get you all set up with your platform. But we'll reach out to you if you need any help. We do give you full instructions on how to get it set up. If you have any questions, one of our customer service representatives will help you get that set up. So we should have everybody that's joining now set up by the end of the day tomorrow. And you'll also have all your bonuses and members area access set up as well. Tonight you should just be able to select your platform and get some of the welcome emails to start getting started, and then by the end of the day tomorrow we should have everybody up and running. Yeah, I believe it is compatible with the Canadian version of TOS. We have a lot of members in Canada who use it and never heard that there was an issue there. All right, well, I'm going to go ahead and leave it there. Thank you to Jim. Thanks for joining. Thank you guys. We'll know it works for daily as well as intraday time frames. So it can be applied to any time frame on your chart. So if I didn't get to your question, again, shoot us an email, support@altostrading.com. Welcome to everybody who's joined us already. I'm really happy to have you guys on board, and wish you guys the best week and weekend ahead, and I wish you the best success in your trading. Thanks again for having me, Becky.